what do you think has changed in you? Because I'm just wondering, like, how can, do you think it is the messaging that you're starting to get because of this movement around single women? Do you think that do you think that's making it easier for people to go, no, I'm not? Because again, looking back to my behaviors when I was younger, like I would tie myself up in knots because I didn't
Hmm.
want someone to leave me. I would, put up with stuff or not say what I was feeling. Like, I think,
Hmm.
I'm thinking of one guy where it was really clear that he just wasn't that into me.
Hmm.
But yet I would do anything. I would like tiptoe around. Oh my God, but I can't. Oh, I've got to be so careful because just in case he leaves, it's like that is when you
Hmm.
should go, why would I want to be with someone who
Yeah.
isn't into me? It's
Yeah.
insane. But things were very different when I was your age. Whereas for you, I wonder whether what gave you the strength to be straight with him. Because you know what the fucking insane thing is that it's so simple.
Yeah.
If someone isn't behaving properly, if
Yeah.
someone is, if you're allowing someone to cross your boundaries, you just go, no, the
Yeah.
end. But there's this thing in women that's like, oh, but what if I don't meet somebody else? But what if I never get chosen again? But what,
Right.
blah, 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 blah. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the point I had to get to. It's like either like, why am I anxious? Why am I rehearsing my text? Why am I journaling? I don't journal. Why am I journaling? Because you have got me to this point now where I feel so like emotionally dysregulated that I'm having to employ tactics to make me calm. I did not have to do this before you were here. So the fact that I'm doing this now that you're here is wrong. And also one thing that really helps me, like, controversially, I stopped reading a lot of self-help because I realized none of this stuff is actually helping me. All it's doing is making me find more issues within myself and find ways to temper my own behaviors and feelings so I can keep someone around. I just felt like self-help wasn't doing me any good. And I started to read more theory, right? Like I started to read Eva Illouz. I was reading, when I wrote that Vogue piece, I was reading Jane Ward's The Tragedy of Heterosexuality,
This is
which
on
I
my
think is
list to
such,
ask you about this book
yeah, it's
because I've
such an
heard you
important
talk about
book.
it.
I think it completely changed my life. I'm going to be so real. I think it has really changed my life.
Wow.
And when I started to understand theory more, I was like, do you know what? What is happening right now is bigger than just this interpersonal relationship, right? When you were talking about the person before and how they were just like not that into you and stuff like that, like I have even stopped seeing it as, oh, this person, it's not that he's not that into me, it's that he is wielding power in this interpersonal relationship, and all of this stuff is intentional, it is tactics. And what I've really started to understand, particularly in straight relationships or in the straight kind of dating world, when we think about the fact that women don't need men anymore because they can earn for themselves, open bank accounts or whatever, like they can run their households, whereas the men used to have dominance in the workplace, they have dominance in the home, right? All of these places where they'd be able to exert this idea of like, I'm a man, I'm in control. Now those spaces are dwindling, they are losing their power, and I feel like the only space that they can really exert dominance is in the emotional sphere, in the dating sphere. And so I feel like when men are engaging with you but like not properly, and they're breadcrumbing you, and we kind of have all these terms to define these weird interactions that we have in the dating space, like a lot of this is just exercising an emotional dominance, a power, right? It's about how many people can I have on the go, like how can I feel important, how can I feel as if I am dominant in this situation, because it's not in the workplace, it's not in the home, but this is the sphere. And so I think when I
So
started to do that, I
interesting.
just stopped buying into it. I just said, oh, this is a tactic, this is about boosting your ego, this is about making you feel good about yourself. You know what you're doing. Like, we infantilize men way too much. Like, so many women are like, he did this thing because he has like this attachment style and blah, blah, blah. No, this is intentional. This person doesn't respect you. And like in the Tragedy of Heterosexuality, she talks a lot about the misogyny paradoxes, which is where like men are raised in an environment that tells them to kind of hate women, but they still need to be romantically involved and invested in them. And it's like they are really struggling to align those two things of like, oh, I need to dominate these women, I need to behave this way towards women, but I also need to procreate with them, which gives us all of these really strange dynamics in our relationships with men. Like, it's not even that, oh, he has this attachment style he's not that into. It's misogyny and sexism at play. Like, all of this stuff is so intentional. And I think I stopped taking it personally, and I stopped taking it as a, I am this type of person, or I don't have this skill, or I'm not communicating. Like literally, it's not any of that stuff, because we wind ourselves up into doing this thing and doing this thing and this course and taking this personality test. And, we're so fixated on trying to categorize our behaviors and figure out how we can change them so we can
Mm.
perform better in the dating market. But this is not an equal, fair, or even emotionally safe space. And I think when I stopped doing that, I started to feel a lot better about myself, a lot more confident. I realized that it wasn't about me. There was so much more that was happening that was kind of shaping my behaviors and my reactions and my feelings and the way that men treated me. Like it no longer became an issue of, I need to improve this thing about myself, and more, oh, I'm operating in this space, which is inherently quite unfair. And I think that really helped me to be more kind of sure of myself, because it's not that like, oh, I never date and I never speak to anyone. Of course I date, but now I don't feel compelled to be in situations that don't serve me. I don't feel ruled by this need to be kind of chosen, and I don't think about all of the ways I can improve myself so a man wants me. I don't care. Like I literally don't care. So I just think it took a lot of kind of reading and understanding the wider forces at play and not individualizing it so much. It isn't about me. This is behaviors that are happening in a system that encourage it, as opposed to me needing to like read more books or whatever.
So incredibly interesting. I just want to say two things. Firstly, it's just made me think about the book. He's just not that into you. And actually, I know people sort of slag that book off and forget the
Mm,
film, because the film kind of completely like negates the whole point of the book. Is a bit. I mean, I actually really like the film, but I think the way that it ends, it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, it's literally going against the whole point of what the guy is saying in the
mm,
book. But the reason I like He's Just Not That Into You is because it was the first book that I remember reading it, and sort of almost grinning to myself like, fuck me, I wish I'd known this stuff earlier, because
mm,
it's so like, it's so just honest. It's like, if he's not phoning you, if he's not picking the phone up and
mm,
arranging to see you, he's not that into you. How many
mm.
times are we like, yeah, but he's got a lot going, all this bullshit. When a guy says, oh yeah, I've just got so much going on, walk
No.
away, walk away, walk away. Bullshit. If you like someone, the fact is you will make time for them. The end, period. I don't give a
Mm,
shit what anyone says. I really,
yeah.
really feel that so strongly.
Yep.
Um, do you know what I mean? And one of the other things that I wanted to say is that basically I really want to hear more about this book, The Tragedy of Heterosexuality, because like I said, I've heard
Mm,
you talk about this book a few times on Reels. I've heard you talk about it on a podcast,
yeah.
and I really want to hear about the premise of it. But before that, I wanted to just add that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and I think it might tie into what I've heard you say about this book.
Mm,
So I've always had a feeling, when I say always, I mean for decades, I've always had this kind of wondering whether, in fact, human beings are meant to be with one person in a long-term relationship forever. I've
mm,
wondered for many, many, many years, is this what we are actually made to do? Like, there has always been like a doubt in me that this is the way that it should be, because we're not really
mhm,
made like this. And yes, of course, we want connection, we want sex, blah, 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 we want babies, blah, 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 blah. But actually, our long-term relationships, when you get together with one person, you're with that person for the rest of your life. We
mm,
only have to look at the state of marriage, the divorce rate, people in miserable relationships, right? And so I would love you to speak to this and just get, you might completely disagree with me, but I feel like it might also play into the message that comes out of this book, The Tragedy of Sexuality, which
mm.
I am now dying to read thanks to you.
It's so good. Yeah, and do you know what? I wrote a piece for Gay Times actually about kind of not exploring, but like trying to understand non-monogamy. And as part of writing this piece, I interviewed Ruby Rare, who wrote the non-monogamy playbook. And they basically kind of they're like a kind of sex educator who's trying to like get people to, yeah, think a bit more deeply about what the nature of their relationships look like. And I think that was quite a transformative piece for me to write, and interview for me to have, because it got me thinking so much more about all the things we just accept as the norm, and how in other parts of our lives, like we can have many friends and have different relationships with our friends, or have equally as intense relationships with our friends, and we don't feel the need for it to be exclusive to just this one person. And like, why can't we apply that to our romantic lives as well? And why does it feel quite difficult to apply that to our romantic lives? And I think, she talks about this whole idea of, just the institution of marriage and the couple and two people being an invention that we have had to subscribe to, like a culture, a set of cultural norms that were created, as opposed to something that we naturally just did.
Yeah.
And how that has been quite challenging for a lot of people to kind of accept. And I think oftentimes I used to just think, oh, people who are polyamorous were like A, smelly, and B, commitment phobes. And that's what I believed, right? And it wasn't until I was like, do you know what? I think it's really important to be open to ideas that you're not always comfortable with, to really understand where they're coming from. And that helped me think, yeah, actually, it does make sense. Although I think with a lot of like currently straight men, like I just don't know if they have the emotional bandwidth to do that in a way that feels like mature and considered. And I used to think, oh, polyamorous people are just like so highly emotionally intelligent, and they have this thing that allows them to be this way. And it's not, it's a choice. It's an active choice, and it's a constant conversation that I think we don't do in like straight heterosexual relationships, because I think straight relationships thrive, monogamous straight relationships thrive off a concealing of information, right? It's like, as a woman, you're always wanting to know, like, well, what do you think about this? Well, how does he feel about this? What keeps you locked in is this need to know, this kind of concealing of information, a lack of conversation, a lack of openness. And that is what rules our relationships. And even so many of the like weird dating tactics, don't reply too fast, don't do this, da, da, da. We are governed by this idea of withholding, which makes it very difficult, I think, to turn around and start being in a non-monogamous relationship that requires a over explanation of feelings and behaviors compared to when you're in a monogamous relationship. So I do agree, and I do feel like more people should probably be open to exploring what that relationship looks like to them, and looking at things like non-monogamy and polyamory, and seeing, okay, is this the sort of relationship that I can sustain? Like, can I love this person and be with this person, but also love these other people the same way I do my friendships? And so I think, yeah, I'm definitely, it's not something that I am personally doing or practicing right now, but I do think like, if I was to get into a relationship with someone and we'd been together for like 30 years or something, like I would be curious about, okay, well, what does it look like if I know that I'm in this stable relationship with you and you're my primary partner, and you can't provide all of my needs in this life? Like, what does it look like to explore that with other people, but still have respect for you? So I think it's something I'm really interested in, actually.
It's funny because I personally, like you say, it's not something you're exploring at the moment, and it's never been something that I've explored or indeed wanted to, right? Because
Mhm.
when I'm, okay, I've been single 8 years, but when I'm in a relationship, I'm in a relationship, and I don't want to be with anyone else. I mean,
Mm.
I have been unfaithful to a boyfriend, which I feel really bad about, but in general, I kind of, if I'm happy in a relationship, then I'm not wanting to be with anyone else, and I'm certainly not wanting them to be with anyone else. But actually, going back to the question that I asked about should people be in long-term relationships, there's a part of me that thinks, yes, I totally hear
Mm.
what you're saying about polyamory and non-monogamy and all of that. But I wonder whether there's also a part of this that is just like, you know what? You have a relationship. Okay, maybe it lasts for 5 years. When it
Mm.
goes shit, why are we trying to save this? Why are we
Yeah.
not just going, do you know what? This has been fabulous. It is no longer working. I love
Mhm.
you. I respect you. Before it turns into an absolute bitter shit show, bye bye. Like,
Mhm.
why can't we do that? I almost feel like that would be, in so many cases, the way to go. It's like, we've come to the end of the road of this relationship. But it's because, partly we make out, like society makes out, like, a divorce is a quote failure. Well, why aren't we celebrating divorces? It's like, if someone's got
Yeah.
out of a fucking shitty marriage, congratulations. Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? So I
Yeah.
do think that, yes, I get the polyamory and non-monogamy and all of that. I find it really hard to say non-monogamy.
Mhm.
Um, but I also think it's kind of like, how many relationships should have ended years before they actually did. But because we've been programmed to believe that you meet someone, you get married, you have kids, you're with that person for the rest of your life. So
Mm-hmm.
people, we all know couples who are not happy. We've all seen miserable people in relationships, wives griping at their husbands being dicks, whatever. We've
Mm,
all seen it. Why do we continue to do it? It's absolute madness to me. And that
mm,
isn't to say that some people shouldn't be together forever. Of
yeah.
course, there are some people who have an amazing relationship and for whatever reason it just works and they're together until the day that one of them dies. Obviously. But I
Mm,
think there are many more who perhaps should just acknowledge when they get to the end of the road instead of struggling through and resisting that it's over and resisting that they're both miserable. You know?
yeah. I think it's just a fear of like being seen as failing, essentially. And also, I think it is like a scarcity thing of if I leave this person, there isn't going to be anyone else.
Yeah. Fear
This
of being
is where
alone.
it kind of ends. Yeah. And I think people are just worried. They're worried about this idea of like, oh, am I going to be able to do life alone? Will anyone want me after I've been with this person? And I think it's a lot of kind of a fear essentially of failing and also never finding anyone again.
Yeah.
But it's like people don't see how it is better to take the risk than it is to never take the risk and live miserably. Because you can always
Totally.
build a great life for yourself if you want to, but you have to be willing to do that.
This is the thing. This is the thing that drives me crazy. It's like it is so much better to be single than it is to be in a crappy relationship. I
Yep.
swear, I just believe that to my absolute core. I've been in good relationships, I've been in bad relationships, I've been happily single, I've been unhappily single. I've been all of it.
Mm,
But I think, again, the reason why people shy away from this is because so many people still believe that being single is a fate worse than death. So they avoid it at all costs. So they stay in crappy
hmm
relationships. And again, it's another reason why, I get guys in my comments, like I had someone the other day. In fact, I think this was even a woman, but like, well, I've had guys and women and girls. Why are you encouraging people to be single? You're not listening to me. You're not listening. That is not my message. If you go and
hmm
listen to my podcast from 4 fucking years ago, that is not what I'm saying here. But it's like my message has always been a single life gets to be just as fabulous as a coupled life. So for God's
Exactly.
sake, just,
Exactly.
don't feel like you've got to get into any old relationship because being single is shit. Being single does not have to be shit. And like you
Exactly.
say, you've got to be open and willing to build a life but by yourself. But I think people are so terrified of the thought of being alone because of the societal messaging, because it's just so ingrained in our psyche, in our DNA, in every fiber of our being, that the
hmm
fear is real, which just makes me wonder if is anything actually changing at all. I don't know.
Yeah. I think on a cultural level, being single for me anyway, just it seems more fun and exciting. And there's just like I don't know, there's something about a single life that has potential because I think we always kind of see your life as you're living until you meet someone and then you settle down and happy ever after, and that's kind of it. And so there's something about getting in a relationship to me that kind of feels like an ending as opposed to a start of new possibilities, which it absolutely can be. But
Yeah.
I think now when you've been fed that for so long, we kind of see singleness as this sort of like openness to experience and do life in a fun and exciting and random way. And so I think from a cultural perspective, yes. But obviously, I think people still succumb to those pressures and people still feel the need, oh, I need to be partnered up with someone. But in my eyes, that just doesn't feel like the cool thing. And I think there are obviously so many more celebrities that are embracing their singleness and celebrity women that are absolutely gorgeous that are talking about it. And it kind of just feels like, oh, we are lifting the taboo and we might not be all the way there yet. But I do think it doesn't feel as punishing as it once did.
Yeah.
But I do see the ways that people are still socialized to believe that they need to be in pursuit of a relationship and their life isn't complete until they're in a relationship. That I know that still happens. I know people are
Yeah.
still impacted by it, depending on where you live. A lot of people said this article comes from a very Western lens, which of course it does because I'm here and I live here and I speak to people who are here. But I do understand that in other cultures, like that pressure isn't quite lifting just yet.
Yeah. Do you know one thing that's actually really ironic, which I'm not sure I've ever thought about before, but it's the idea, this thing of like it, let's face it, it's women who are, and I'm not saying men don't also feel the expectation and feel the pressure or whatever to get married, but I think it's women that
Mm,
feel the kind of panic and the real like, oh my God, what if I don't get chosen? The irony is that women are so much better single than men. And it's
yep.
women who end up sort of, if they get divorced, they'll be like, I mean, I hear so many women talking about like, oh my God, I got divorced. I'm happier than ever. Jesus Christ. Like I'm like living my best life. This is absolutely awesome. I'm never going to get married again. Blah, blah, blah. It's just so ironic that women are the ones that kind of feel this like, oh God, it's everything. My relationship status is everything. But they're also the ones, much more so than men. Men seem to have more of a tendency to move straight into another relationship, which I've always found mind boggling because when I come out of a relationship, I need time to myself before I even
Mm.
think about another relationship. Have you heard of a guy called Scott Galloway?
Yeah, he was even talking about my article the other day.
Was
Someone
he?
linked me a video.
Oh,
I need to go back and watch it because I
oh,
don't
well,
think I really agreed with what he said. So
oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
what did he say?
You must listen to him. He's fascinating. And actually, thinking about this, I think it was him on Lewis Howe's podcast, School of
Oh,
Greatness. So
maybe.
maybe that was it. But the reason I wanted to bring up Scott Galloway with you is because actually just thinking about, talking about men. So he's written a book called Notes on Being a Man. I haven't read it yet, but I know that it's about the sort of growing masculinity crisis, the manosphere, misogyny, all of that. He talks, and I've heard him on multiple podcasts. He's kind of been on my radar for a while. He talks about male suicide rates being sky high, as well as how when women are single, they tend to double down on passions, friends, career. Whereas when men are single, they tend to, and again, this is not every man, but many tend to turn to porn or gambling,
Mm,
addiction. What are your thoughts on this? Because I really do think that we are in a bit of a crisis, actually,
mm, mm.
particularly men.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, the tough thing is, I feel like, because I think of Scott Galloway as well, he's very, I guess, controversial in this sense, where a lot of people are like, I hear what you're saying, but it kind of sometimes feels like you're making it like women's problem, whereas that like men have to do the work with men. It's like I saw like a meme where it's like, when women are lonely, they start like the Lonely Girls Club or whatever, but when men are lonely, like they're not doing anything meaningful to be in community with others. They're kind of isolating themselves even more, like you said. And it kind of makes me feel like, well, they need to be incentivized to be kind of better and do better for themselves. And like this is one of the things that I wanted to somewhat hope for from this piece. Like if we turn around and say, oh, having a boyfriend is embarrassing just because of the way men behave, are known to behave, the way they are engaging on social media, all this kind of stuff, like just the perspective of men or the idea of men is now embarrassing to be attached to. Will this encourage men to think about the ways in which they can better themselves? So the branding of who they are doesn't feel like it's completely falling apart. Because obviously I understand this is what made a lot of men angry about the piece. And some people were, just furious, and other people were like, I agree that men need to step up. And what I also really wanted to get at was this idea of like, a lot of people always say not all men, or a lot of women particularly were like, yeah, like men are trash. I hate all men, but not my boyfriend. Men are this, men are that, but not my man. Absolutely your man. And this is the point we need to get to, where some of us feel like because we are exceptional or we are different, we have managed to find men who are just amazing and above the rest. But actually, what I want is for everyone to feel a little bit more collectively responsible for like the issues that we have within heterosexual relationships. Like, yes, men are a problem. Yes, women accept things that they shouldn't, but we all need to be invested in that idea. And I think women have done really well to fortify themselves and to build up their confidence and their kind of standing in this world outside of relationships where men have not. And it's really interesting that, the number one thing that men were saying to me is like, oh, you're lonely, you're going to spend Christmas by yourself, you're going to, I have a family. What? I have a family and I have friends. But to a lot of men, it's like their community is as wide as their partner. And their partner has to carry all of the things and be all of the roles to them all the time. And
Mm.
they see me as a single woman, as someone who has no one, because for them, that's it. It's just, I'm with my wife, my girlfriend, and this is where it begins and ends. They don't think about the role that their community has to play in being a part of their lives, which is why they think that I'm lonely. But, I come from a family that loves me down. I have friends that love me down. So I'm never going to be lonely. But they just can't understand that they have community, but they don't tap into it.
Mm.
And I just think they have to really do the work, but they don't want to. They want to make it our issue. And I think the only way we can really encourage them to change or incentivize their change is to make being with a man like a kind of just undesirable, like not chic, not en vogue situation to be in, because otherwise there is no incentive. And I think that's been the biggest issue. Men have not been incentivized to change or to be better. There's really been no repercussions for how they behave and their actions. And I think now it's like, okay, cool. If we are telling you this and we're saying this and we're, starting movements and you're not listening, what if we just make being with you a very unpopular, not chic thing to do? Like, will that encourage you to want to be better? But yeah, I don't really know what the kind of solution is and how things really change. But I know it starts with like men having to have their own conversations and have their own spaces in whatever way they see fit to just get people engaging.
I wonder why men are so resistant to doing the work and so resistant to making the effort to change. Because,
Mm,
you and I both know from all the angry men and women, but a lot of angry men in the comments, what's so hilarious is that, and I'm sure you've had this off the back of the piece, like I've had guys in the comments, getting angry and annoyed. And then I'm like, and you wonder why I'm talking about this? Because listen to you. Like literally, when they write something really like some guy wrote just a really crude, revolting comment yesterday. I did a reel about how ultimately we all die alone, and can we just quit banging on
yeah,
about how all single women are going to die alone, being eaten by their cats. I mean, it's so fucking boring. Let's just move on. And of course, loads of men have been like, well, people apparently I am going to die alone, blah 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 blah, and be lonely and miserable. And yes, but when you get to, you're not going to have kids, and it's like, oh my god, you're not even listening to my
you're
point.
not.
And also, anyway, this guy wrote some ridiculous, childish comment, like, yeah, well, I don't want anyone around me because I'm going to be like shitting and pissing all over the place,
What?
giggle emoji. And I think I wrote something back like, well, don't you sound like a charmer? I mean, really, it's just like, what? Listen to yourself. Like, think about what you are, the words that are coming out of your mouth. And again,
Mhm.
not all men. I know lovely, lovely, lovely men. I have a brother. I had a dad. I've got male friends who I love to pieces. But, it's infuriating. Chante, what do you think have been, after this whole experience of this piece, what have been your main takeaways, do you think? What have you learnt over the last month and a bit?
I think I've learned that there is still a kind of unrelenting pressure on single women to settle into relationships that they're maybe not happy in just to be in a relationship. And I think it is getting younger and younger, that conditioning, which really worries me a lot. And then I would say that I think it also made me realize that from the comments I got from, particularly young men curious about how they change, that there is like a nugget of like hope in the future. And I think for me, a lot of people kept saying, you hate love, you hate people in relationships, you blah, 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 blah. And I realized, you know what, this is not actually about me hating love. This is about me thinking that our relationships can be so much more. In Tragedy of Heterosexuality, she talks about like a deep heterosexuality where men can love women so much they also desire their freedom and they desire them in leadership positions and their liberation, and they want the best for them more than just owning them. And I think it kind of gave me a vision of what the world could be if we started to have these conversations. I also really kind of realized that there is an appetite for content that is directed at kind of single women, but not in a sort of pedantic, oh, you go girl sort of way, but like something that really helps them to analyze their own singleness. Like I'm writing a book at the moment, it's called Picky, and it's kind of about the tropes or the ideas that we kind of sell to single women about their own singleness.
Like you're
And I
too
really
picky.
yeah, like you're too picky, you have unrealistic expectations, and all of these like ideas, like are they actually true? And really digging into the ways that we are socialized to believe they're true, but the ways that kind of we internalize them and all of the systems that help keep us kind of stuck in this spiral of believing that we need to lower our standards if we want to find love. And I think, yeah, there's an appetite for understanding what those forces are to help people move on from it. And it did kind of feel like, you know, a lot of people are saying you're trying to divide women and you're just as bad as men and you're blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this isn't about making fun of women. This isn't about driving a wedge between us or attacking other women, but it's about getting everybody to think more deeply about the nature of their relationships and how they feel about them. We're so used to concealing how we feel. We're so used to not talking about how we feel. We're so used to seeing being in a relationship as the end that we don't really talk about what happens after. And as a result, I think so many relationships suffer because we just don't want to acknowledge that, oh, this thing isn't actually good. So I think, yeah, I'm learning a lot about that at the moment. And, you know, I kind of just, I am hopeful. Like, I don't think things are going to be terrible forever. I do believe that change can happen. But I just think, yeah, it just takes men particularly being actively involved in that changing.
Well, I cannot wait to read this book. Have you got any idea when it's going to be coming out?
Next summer, I believe. But
Wow.
we'll see. We'll see.
Oh my God, I have to get you back on to talk about your book.
No, for
Chante,
real.
now you, as we've already discussed, you are 20 years younger than me. You're 29. Where are you at in terms of your relationship status and being single and what you want from your life?
Yeah, so I'm like dating at the moment, kind of. Like, I haven't really been actively on it, but like, I will go on a date every now and again and see if I like someone, if I vibe with someone. But also, I kind of just feel a bit like this feels like a big moment for me and my career. And ultimately, I am way more invested in my career than I am in my relationship status. And I think I kind of realized this year that I have zero desire to be in a relationship if my career is going well. You know, I think the only time where I'm like, oh, I want to go on a dating app or whatever is when I'm like having a slow month or I'm not getting any commissions or whatever. And then I kind of feel this like need to kind of be with someone. But when things are going well for me, I don't care about men. Like, I really don't. So I'm kind of trying to, you know, date and figure out what's going on out there. Like, feel like I'm keeping abreast of what is like trending culturally within the dating space, but I'm not really ready to kind of be like, oh, I'm going to be with this person or whatever. When I think about the future, like, I don't know if I can imagine myself married or with kids. Like, I've always really, really struggled to imagine any of that stuff for myself. And I think it's because like I've been single for ages. Like, my last relationship was like maybe like 6 years ago or something. And I, you know, I was raised by single women. Like, most of the women in my family are single, and I've kind of always seen the way that they do life. And so I think I've always really struggled to imagine a world in which like I have a partner, because that was never the thing I ever saw growing up. Like, I never
Yeah.
saw relationships. I always just saw single women raising their children, getting shit done. And so, yeah, it's not that that's never going to happen for me, but I don't know. I just really struggle to be like, you know, I'm just like, oh, okay, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I don't know. Like, if all these women survived, I'll survive.
You know what's
Meaning
so
friends.
interesting about what you said? It really reminds me of something that I talk about, which is the fact that 9 times out of 10 being single isn't actually the problem at all. It's that your
Mm,
life isn't lighting you up. And
mm,
it was so interesting to me the way that you said there, when your career is going well and when you've got that direction and that meaning and that kind of purpose and that excitement in your life,
mhm.
suddenly relationships just goes out your fucking head. And this is another of my messages that I'm really passionate about spreading. Now, before we wrap up, Shantae, tell us a little bit about Strangers in the City, because it sounds so absolutely awesome. And I'm sure there'll be some listeners who live in London or in the UK who are going to
Mhm.
be really interested in this. So tell us all about it.
So yeah, Strange in the City is an event series I started last year with my best friend. We have one rule: you have to come by yourself, and we do activities all over London at the moment, but we're really hoping to expand to different cities, maybe even different countries. We've actually just launched like our January fitness series. We're doing like aerial gymnastics, jujitsu. Like, it's gonna be crazy. Like, we always try to focus on like novel activities, novel experiences with strangers. And it's this whole idea of like, you're gonna do something you've probably never done before. Everyone else here is also going to be super new to this, and you all don't know each other. And so it's like the perfect environment to just like be yourself. I don't know if I'm ever going to see any of you people again. So I can just really be me and enjoy it, and it doesn't feel like a big deal. But yeah, we just kind of do all these events. People come solo. We kind of release them as a series of events, and we have our tickets and stuff. And it's just like been growing and growing, and people love it, and they're coming back and they're trying new things and they're discovering new hobbies that they've started. And it's so nice. For our first birthday, we did dinner with 100 strangers,
Oh,
and it was amazing. And people made group chats and they hung out afterwards, and it's just been incredible to build this sort of kind of community for myself, or just kind of, there's not even a community, but this sort of platform for people to connect and dip in and out of without this sort of sense of they always need to be here. And it's just, I would really encourage people to come. And everyone does go on about, oh, is it really young people? It's a mix. And we did like dinner with 40 strangers over 40 once before, and we're kind of always thinking about ways to serve different like communities and their needs and stuff. So yeah, I would encourage people to come down.
I have to say, it sounds absolutely fabulous. How many people do you tend to get at each event, or does it completely vary?
It varies on the space. Like some places we might get 20 to 30 people because that's what the activity can hold. But then obviously our dinners we'll have like up to 100 people. So it kind of all depends on what we're doing. Like, we did baking, we did bread making the other day at Bread Ahead, and that was like maybe 20 people. And so it kind of depends. But we don't want to do them too big because we are really focused on connection. We do a lot of like games, activities, quizzes. We have a lot of materials that help to ignite conversation between each other and keep things flowing. And it's kind of like, yeah, we kind of just basically design the experience centered around connection. So we try to
Sounds
keep it small.
it sounds super cool. And am I right in thinking that you have a rule where you can't bring anyone else that you know? So, and which I think is a brilliant rule, because as soon as you've got like a mate there, you're just going to like hang out with them and
Yeah,
not make the
exactly.
efforts. Is that right?
Yeah. We want people to come alone because
Yeah.
honestly, when you see like we basically say we want an equal opportunity, like kind of friendship for to happen at these events. So we want people to come without a crutch. So they are forced to really engage with the people around them. And the thing is, like, if we have a dinner, a lot of the time we'll get people to change seats, halfway through the event and maybe at the dessert course. And so we know that we want you to meet people and we want to facilitate that. And so we're not going to have you sat next to someone you don't like for the whole event. Like, we're always thinking about ways to change the space so it's easier for you to meet new people. But yeah, it's so important that people come on their own because you just won't be as inclined to connect with others if you have
Yeah,
someone there that you already know.
completely. Chanté Joseph, thank you so, so much for your time. I have absolutely loved this conversation. I really, really have. How can people find you, follow you, and how can people get involved in Strangers in the City? Tell them what they need to know.
So yeah, you can follow me at Chanté J across all platforms, and then Strange in the City events across all platforms too. We kind of host all of our events on Eventbrite, so you can always like follow us on Eventbrite or sign up to our mailing list where you'll be like notified every time events go out. And yeah, we can always do like a discount code for your listeners, so we can like think of one and then you can put it in like the event, the
In the show notes.
podcast description, yeah,
Yeah, it'd be
that we share
amazing.
to people. And yeah, we kind of just welcome anyone, all ages, shapes, sizes, colors, abilities. Like it is really a space just to connect with people outside of your normal life. So please come along.
It honestly sounds so, so fabulous. And I've no doubt that it will grow and grow and grow. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time. Anything else that you want to say before we finish?
Everyone read the piece. Everyone read all my other pieces in Vogue. I have another piece coming out this month, and yeah, I'm just kind of manifesting a column for me.
That would
That
be
would be
awesome.
iconic. Yeah.
That would be iconic. That would be so, so cool. It's fabulous to talk to you. Sending you so much love and all the
Thank
best, and
you.
stay in touch. Don't be a stranger in the city. Lots of love.